computer virus.
Oh no, what did I do?
Unless we stop it in less than 45 seconds, the whole computer lab's gonna crash. It's not responding to anything.
How do we stop it?
Let me see what I can do.
Only 15 more seconds.
Man, hold on. Let's try this. Yes. Let's hope this works. Okay, guys. Cross your fingers.
That was close.
I'll say.
Whew, that was a close one. Man, somebody ought to have some kind of, I don't know, network cable or something that you can just disconnect so a virus can't finish downloading. But I guess such things exist only in the realm of dreams. Ladies and gentlemen and others, welcome to Power Rangers Zeo. Last time on Power Rangers.
Goldar and Rito have stolen the Zeo Crystal!
What's happening?
Rangers, you must evacuate the command center.
We can't leave you.
Nothing that important happened. Anyway, after a recap of the events of the season finale, the Rangers go through the wreckage of the command center, hoping to find any sign of Alpha or Zordon. Up on the moon, Zed and Rita are deep in celebration of utterly defeating the Rangers. At least until the palace starts to shake. Rita looks through her telescope to try to figure out what's going on, and is horrified by what she sees. Back in the ruins, Adam spots something glowing amidst the rubble and the Rangers start digging. 5 minutes later, they're still digging, despite the amount of rubble they must have cleared away by that point. They discover the Zeo Crystal, figuring that Goldar must have dropped it. I have no idea how the hell one does that when you're teleporting, but I'm going to guess, based on what we see of Goldar and Rito later, that the command center's usual defenses for keeping evil forces out screwed them up a bit, coupled with the bomb they planted, forced the Zeo Crystal from their grasp. Up on the moon, the palace is under attack. Rita and Zed quickly decide that they have to flee from someone named King Mondo and his machine empire. We get our first glimpses of it too, and it's damn impressive. There are hundreds of mechanized servants, walking tanks, aircraft. Mind you, Mondo will resort to the exact same damn strategy that Rita and Zed pulled during their tenure instead of launching a full-scale invasion. But hey, what are you gonna do? We'll get a big invasion from space later, trust me. Anyway, Zed and Rita carry off all their possessions towards Serpentera, along with the Tengas. Though why they didn't whip up some putties to help carry the stuff is anyone's guess. Rita realizes that they forgot Rito and Goldar, but Zed tells her to forget about them, since they obviously failed to obtain the Zeo Crystal. Speaking of which, the crystal causes the Rangers' feet to stay gripped to one spot and a hole opens up, dropping them into the tunnels under the command center. Zed realizes the important fact that while they may actually escape from the Machine Empire, they have nowhere to escape to, especially since Serpentera's AAA batteries are no doubt going to end up dying if they just wander around too long. Rita suggests they go to the M51 Galaxy and live with her dad. While Zed is reluctant to do so, he really has no better ideas and proceeds to Serpentera. As the Rangers explore the tunnels, the outer shell of the command center miraculously starts to reassemble itself. Rito and Goldar find themselves scrounging around a neighborhood suffering from amnesia. Eventually they run into Bulk and Skull, who are reassembling a motorcycle to make their own patrol bike. At first they're frightened by the two, but when the monsters reveal that they're desperate for help, Bulk and Skull take them in as their servants. I'll get into my thoughts on that at the end, of course. The Rangers eventually come across an energy door and enter it, hearing Alpha's voice on the other side. They emerge in a high-tech room where Alpha explains that this is the Power Chamber, a secondary command center that Zordon and he have been working on for a while. Zordon exposits about the Machine Empire arriving, about how they've broken away from the United Alliance of Evil, and now need to conquer the Earth to complete their strategy of taking over the universe. Speaking of the Alliance, Zed and company finally manage to escape, but Zed swears that he'll return. The Rangers are told that with the power of the Zeo Crystal, they can now give them new powers to fight the Machine Empire. However, Billy points out that there are only 5 Zeo subcrystals, and thus only 5 of them can become Rangers. Billy says he's willing to step down, though Tanya does try to intercede since she's the least experienced. However, Billy thinks that his experience with the Alien Rangers showed him that he could be of more help to the team as a technical advisor and helper at the Power Chamber. We learn some more about the Machine Empire and the Royal House of Gadgetry. King Mondo, of course, his wife Machina, his son Prince Sprocket, and footmen of the throne Clank and Orbis. Clank has a Scottish accent, because the Scottish are well known for colonizing other worlds and building robots. The foot soldiers of the Empire are the Cogs, which, according to Zordon,
must be completely dismantled to be defeated.
Turns out that fully dismantled means punch them enough times and they'll either die or run away. The Zeo subcrystals are reconstituted into the new morphers, called Zeonizers. The Zeonizers are awesome. They're different from the morphers, while still maintaining their unique look and coolness factor, especially since it takes some getting used to on how to open the damn things. Speaking from experience here. Meaning that you need to be kinda skilled to get it right. The Rangers are also granted new colors along with the powers. While of course Kat is pink and Tanya is yellow, Rocky becomes blue, Adam green, and Tommy red. And as I said, Tommy, the Native American, is now the Red Ranger. Whoops. Unintentional racism out of the way, I find it hilarious how many times Tommy takes on new powers. You could seriously make a team of 5 Rangers made up of Tommy from different time periods, though admittedly you would have 2 Red Rangers in there. To add to the majesty of the new powers, there's a lot of really good background and incidental music that sadly I haven't been able to find in raw form. There's kind of a new chorus in the background, and it really feels like the whole thing is a new beginning, helped by a speech by Zordon about how the Rangers of old are gone forever.
As Power Rangers, you have served your planet well. But the Power Rangers as you have known them are gone forever. In their place has emerged a new and more advanced fighting force. You have now become the Power Rangers Zeo, the next level in the fight against evil.
But that's fine, since it's better than before. Of course, they also honor their past by putting up the old Ranger costumes behind them, kinda like Batman. That's right, the Power Chamber is the Batcave. So the Zeo Rangers fight off the Cogs, with Tanya apparently trained in martial arts because she's more than capable of holding her own against them. A Zeo beginning is a pretty effective start for the season and continuation of the series, though admittedly the ending is a bit anticlimactic. We have all this build-up to how badass and awesome King Mondo and his Cogs are, yet the Rangers beat them in 5 minutes. However, it does set up the new status quo well, and there's a real sense of wonder and excitement once the Rangers get to the Power Chamber. Since this is the first time we have a major costume change, I should note that I like the Zeo suits. They're different from the Mighty Morphin suits in a good way, and I like the golden areas on the costume that are patterned like they were electronic circuits, which is something I'll get to when I analyze the themes of the season. While it's never really given a reason why the Zeo subcrystals have the different shapes to them, it does work for giving the Rangers something new for their helmets now that they don't have animals. Billy assists Zordon and Alpha in constructing the Zeo Zords, which are the only things that can stop the more advanced weapons of the Machine Empire, like their fighters or tanks. And it's easy to see why. They just blast through them like flies. The Megazord's pretty cool too, though of course nothing will ever top the original in my humble opinion. There are a lot more filler episodes than the last season, which is both good and bad. While Season 3 of Mighty Morphin had a strong storyline that kept the viewers enraptured, the less story-heavy Zeo allowed it to complement people who missed the simpler single episodes, while the actual storylines of the series kept viewers engaged. However, the story elements were pretty much built on continuations of the previous seasons, like with the development of Billy, who ends up with the most character growth this season. The start of that was, of course, him no longer being a Ranger, but then in Graduation Blues, he actually graduates early from high school and has to briefly go to Aquatar to assist them against some sort of water-polluting threat. He comes back a few episodes later, though his presence was missed. His absence does help contribute to the next part of the Zeo story arc, as well as something that we'll get to next time. However, before we get to that next part, there's a three-parter that needs to be addressed. There's No Business Like Snow Business begins, after some footage of snowboarders, with Tommy receiving a letter from Kimberly. A Dear John letter. Yes, it seems Kimberly has found someone else while in Florida and is breaking up with Tommy. What the hell? Now, I am not so dewy-eyed and such a hopeless romantic that I wouldn't believe that a high school relationship might eventually lead to two people separating. Hell, one of my critiques of the Twilight series is Bella's suicidal behavior when her high school relationship falls apart. But the thing is that these aren't just teenagers we're talking about. We're talking about two people who served as basically soldiers in a war together for years and risked their lives for one another, who stood by each other even when things had gotten at their worst, and she's breaking up with him off-screen? What the hell, Power Rangers? And the real point of this? The writers wanted to push a Catherine and Tommy relationship. Now, don't get me wrong, Catherine's a fine character, but why this? There was big fan backlash against this, especially since in the Christmas episode, yeah, Power Rangers has done Christmas episodes and they're really pretty embarrassing, though the first one is the worst. There's a potential future scene where it looks like Catherine and Tommy are married and have a kid. I'm just saying, you could have easily made a relationship between Catherine and one of the other characters. Hell, Rocky and Adam don't know nearly as much as the others, and giving them a relationship would have been great character development. And the most that will truly amount to anything from this, besides for the occasional forced Catherine and Tommy moments, is character bits in the Turbo movie, which won't even amount to anything. The three-parter itself is stupid too, and it seems like they did it purely to get a snowboarding vacation for the cast. The plot is paper-thin, with bringing Tommy up to the mountains on the vacation to help him get over Kimberly, and Mondo keeps sending down monsters to try to take them down. Tommy meets a famous ski instructor there who seems to be really falling for him, except she's clearly supposed to be like 30 and he's still a teenager. Well, I mean in the show. I don't think anyone in the casting department has ever seen a real teenager. Anyway, as the filler continued, more toys for kids to buy, I mean weapons, were added to their arsenal. Like the Red Battle Zord, which has kick-ass Gatling gun arms. Or stupid things, like the Defender Wheel, which was essentially a big hamster wheel that Tommy drives into things. The cool thing about the Red Battle Zord was that it was based on Aquatar Zords that Billy studied while he was there, which were directed by the Alien Rangers via psychic ability. I suppose there was a story arc going on, but I really just want to gloss over it. In a storyline that surprisingly was not labeled as a multi-parter, Tommy goes on a vision quest, inner journey, new age bullcrap thing. I'm sorry, but I instantly distrust Hollywood whenever it tries to do anything related to Native Americans, and especially on a kids' show. Few times do they actually manage to portray them accurately, and from a story perspective, not very much happened anyway. However, there are two significant aspects that need to be touched on. The first is that we learn that Tommy has a long-lost brother, whom he reveals that he's a Power Ranger to. The other is that we have the first major encounter between King Mondo and a Ranger, and much like Tommy's fight with Lord Zed, it doesn't go well for him. However, this will not be the last direct conflict they have, and it will contribute to the theme of the season. Because it does have an effect on the plot, I will also note that halfway through the season, Bulk, in an attempt to woo the police captain's daughter, gets Lieutenant Stone fired. Bulk and Skull, in turn, quit the force. However, Stone is more than happy to be gone, deciding to open up a detective agency like he always wanted, and hires the two to assist him. I admit I'm not sure why, because their ability to piss him off has been their shtick for this and the previous season, but hey, it advances the characters. The next major story arc comes in The Power of Gold, wherein the Power Rangers detect two distress signals. The team is split up to hunt them both down, but it turns out they're a trap set by Mondo. The Cogs attack in force, overwhelming the Rangers. Billy tries to reach them when suddenly something jams the communications and overloads the power systems of Mondo's moon base. A huge pyramid flies towards Earth and cloaks. Mondo, fearful of losing control of the Cogs, recalls his forces. Back at the power chamber, Billy overlays the power signature of the Zeo subcrystals over the power signature of the pyramid, and it's an exact match, meaning there's another Zeo crystal aboard the pyramid. The Rangers worry that Mondo's new strategy may split them up even further since there are only 5 of them, leaving Billy to lament the fact that there used to be 6 of them. The Rangers head out to try to find the pyramid, but a group of cogs attack to distract them. While Billy stays behind with his tracking device, the Rangers get overwhelmed by the cogs and one of Mondo's monsters. However, the team is saved by the arrival of a new ranger, the Gold Ranger. The Gold Ranger easily wipes the floor with the cogs. He's got a kick-ass golden power staff, and he moves like the Flash. After shrugging off the attacks by the cogs, he manages to dispatch the monster. However, Mondo is able to save it and make it grow. The Rangers are forced out of their Zords, but the Gold Ranger summons his own Zord, Pyramidas. Pyramidas annihilates the monster, and the Gold Ranger vanishes before they can figure out who he is. When they return to the power chamber, Billy takes longer to come back. The mystery of the Gold Ranger was a pretty effective subplot. Most of the signs pointed to Billy being behind it, since he would frequently make himself scarce whenever the Gold Ranger appeared. He never gave an explanation for what he was doing, but while it was never revealed on screen what it was, there was one good theory that we'll get into next time. A few more red herrings were tossed out, including, of all people, Skull, and of course Tommy's brother was always a possibility. Another element that added credence to the Billy theory is that Pyramidas seemed designed to incorporate the other Zords to create the Zeo Ultra Zord, and given that Billy was the one who built the Zeo Zords, it makes sense that he designed Pyramidas accordingly. Rocky's the first one to suspect Billy and confronts him, but Billy says that if he were the Gold Ranger, he'd have told them. In the penultimate chapter of the Gold Ranger mystery, Pyramidas lands on Earth. Mondo sends the cogs down in force to try to find it, and the Rangers, in an uncharacteristic display of intelligence, decide to just watch the cogs and let them do the work of finding Pyramidas for them. However, before they can get very far, the cogs find the Rangers and attack. The Gold Ranger goes out to help and manages to defeat the cogs. The Rangers finally try to ask him who he is, but he's reluctant to talk. Before they can learn anything else, a bounty hunter named Verox attacks, attempting to steal the Gold Ranger's powers. Verox injures the Gold Ranger, who reveals that he can't tell them who he is or else he'll lose his powers. I don't know why the hell this idea was introduced, since 2 episodes later we learn exactly who he is. It might have worked if they had gone the Billy is the Gold Ranger route, but this way it's just like they needed an excuse to not have him just tell them who he is. They teleport him to the power chamber briefly to heal him, and he reveals that he knows who Zordon and Alpha are before retreating to Pyramidas. The Gold Ranger's identity was finally revealed in Revelations of Gold. The episode opens with Pyramidas under attack by a fleet of Verox bounty hunters. Mondo plans to seal the Gold Ranger powers while the Verox chase Pyramidas to Aquitar, where Pyramidas crashes and the Verox presume him dead. The Equations take the Gold Ranger under their care, and we finally get to see him without his powers, and it's absolutely no one we know. Yeah, all the hints and nudges were for nothing. His name is Trey of the planet Triforia. The Equations teleport him to Earth, but Mondo uses a force field around the power chamber so that when he arrives, he'll smash into it and be destroyed. They redirect the signal to a nearby sea and pull him out, but then he splits into 3 identical copies of himself. He explains that Triforians are made of 3 distinct personalities that are usually joined as one, but that the battle has damaged him to the point where his 3 personalities have split off into Trey of Wisdom, Trey of Courage, and Trey of Heart. Yes, Trey of Heart, just in case you thought Captain Planet was the only one dumb enough to have that idea. Triforians are a race of peacekeepers who will sometimes venture out to other worlds to help stop evil, hence why he came to Earth to fight King Mondo. However, he's not certain of how he can rejoin the 3 aspects back together, and in this state he's unable to become the Gold Ranger. They need to pass the powers on to someone, or else they'll be lost forever. What I love about this scene is that there isn't any hesitation, any question, or wonder of who could assume the powers. Tommy instantly says he knows who can take them, and sends them back to the power chamber to give the powers to Billy. However, when the Rangers return to the power chamber, they learn that during the command center's destruction, Billy absorbed a high dosage of negative proton whatsits, which doesn't even begin to make sense, and essentially he can't take on the powers. I'm not sure why it is from behind the scenes that they couldn't have Billy become the Gold Ranger, but there's a lot of speculation and rumor. A lot of it revolves around David Yost, who played Billy, apparently being difficult to work with, and evidently flip-flopping a lot on whether he'd stay this season or not. In addition, they also wanted Brad Hawkins, who played a role in the Power Rangers-esque series VR Troopers, who did the voice for the Gold Ranger during the early episodes, to become the Gold Ranger, but apparently scheduling conflicts got in the way of that happening. Tommy leaves and tells everybody he thinks he knows someone else who can take on the power. While the Rangers use the Zeo crystals, along with the power of the command center, to keep the Golden Staff energized, Tommy retrieves his candidate and they head back on foot to the power chamber. With the power diverted, they can't teleport him and they can't track him out of fear that Mondo will figure out what they're doing. The implication as Tommy and the candidate run back is that it's Tommy's brother, which would make sense. They established that he knew martial arts when he was introduced, and he already knows all the Rangers' identities. At any time the Rangers reveal themselves, it seems to almost be certain that those people will become Power Rangers. Kudos to the creators for doing an effective job of hiding his identity during the episode. As a little kid, my jaw dropped when they revealed who he was. Anyway, Mondo gets wise to the scheme and attacks the two, forcing them to run to get into their limited teleportation range. When they just barely get inside, Mondo initiates his new robot building technology process, using neo-plutonium armoring to enhance them. Why do I get the feeling it's just going to turn out to be glitter? Meanwhile, Rito and Goldar sleep at the detective agency. Goldar starts to remember who he is and gets a message from Rita and Zed. They'll restore their memories and even restore Goldar's wings, but they must swear off ever doing anything good. And they must prepare. Yes, Rita and Zed are coming back. The two awaken with their memories restored and gleefully push aside Bulk and Skull and steal their bike so they can get back to their Emperor and Empress. Tommy and the candidate arrive, and the candidate takes off his sunglasses, and... yep, it's Jason. I guess Zack and Trini are still stuck at the peace conference. Jason is given the Gold Ranger powers and comes in to help the Rangers fight a monster imbued with the Neoplutonium armor. Before they can call the Zords to fight it, Billy teleports them back. His analysis indicates that the monster is far too powerful and that it'd likely just destroy the Zeo Zords. However, before Trey leaves for Triforia, he reveals that the Triforians were the keepers of the last component of the Zeo powers, the Super Zeo Gems. This allows them to call forth the Super Zeo Zords, more powerful than the previous ones, plus all have humanoid forms. Mondo calls forth a larger force of neoplutonium-enhanced monsters, and the Rangers engage them in combat, managing to blast them apart. So yeah, Jason's back for the rest of the season.
Just like old times.
King Mondo, however, is really pissed at all this and decides to take drastic action. He uncovers a powerful mystical sword that he had used in another conflict, hoping to use its power to finally destroy the Rangers. However, the sword was apparently too powerful, and the reason he stopped using it was that it ultimately destroyed him last time. Yes, it seems the Machine Empire is virtually indestructible, since even if you destroy their leaders, they'll simply be rebuilt. Meanwhile, Rito and Goldar arrive back on the moon and are picked up by Rita and Zed in a camper. I'm guessing that this is more where the idea of Zed being made completely domesticated came from, since the original villains have basically been reduced to comic relief. However, despite that, they still remain more interesting characters, much like how Bulk and Skull can save an episode. Zed and Rito working on ways to restore their empire, or just dealing with their RV, remain more interesting than the Rangers themselves. The Rangers form the Super Zeo Megazord and destroy Mondo, leaving a temporary power vacuum. Rita and Zed have Goldar and Rito launch a missile towards the machine moon base, but due to their incompetence, they lose control of it, and it transforms into a monster called Louis Kaboom. Louis Kaboom takes control of the Empire, somehow, it's not clear, where he remains in power for a few episodes. However, much to the gratitude of Queen Machina, King Mondo's older son Gasket arrives with his wife Archerina. Archerina was the daughter of one of Mondo's rivals, and he disowned him, creating Sprocket as a replacement. The two swiftly deal with Louis Kaboom and work to destroy the Power Rangers before Mondo's return. Oh, and if I don't mention it, someone else will. In the original Sentai, Gasket is actually the older version of Sprocket. At the same time, there's a subplot brewing with Jason dating this former biker woman. It really doesn't go anywhere, but it's something to mention. One of the things to note is that despite Jason holding the Gold Ranger powers, he clearly isn't as strong as Trey. The reasons for this are actually pretty obvious. For starters, Jason's out of practice. It's been 2 years since he was a Ranger, and these are entirely new powers. Trey had years of practice as the Gold Ranger, while Jason had to adjust to them. Plus, they were designed for someone with an entirely different physiology, a problem that will become more apparent when we reach the end of the season. Other minor bits include the addition of the Warrior Wheel to the Zord arsenal, as well as Auric the Conqueror, kind of an ancient Ninjor-esque individual who they'd call to their aid on occasion and will never be mentioned again after Zeo. Back on the story side of things, Tommy is kidnapped by Gasket and brainwashed into believing that he's the king of the Machine Empire. From there, they lure the Rangers into a trap, bringing them to a gladiatorial arena in another dimension. Well, actually, they get some unexpected help from Rita and Zed, who teleport them to Tommy's location. Why? Well, because of a revelation that the villains have.
Sis, I don't get it! What's wrong?
Oh, you fool! We'll have nothing! After all those years of work, we'll still be stuck on this route while those machines take over our planet! Oh.
They eventually restore Tommy's memory with the power of friendship and all that. It's not a bad two-parter, but it's fairly simple. What bolsters the episode up is Bulk and Skull, who also get accidentally transported into the dimension. They join forces with a half-lizard gladiator and help him destroy the force field around the dimension and free the Rangers. I'll get into it a bit more when we discuss Bulk and Skull for this season. At the end of a delightful episode called Another Song and Dance, which features not only a full-scale attack by the Machine Empire, but also Tommy and Tanya having to sing all their lines,
Let's stop this crime!
It's morphine time!
King Mondo returns. The ending storyline of the season begins with Rangers of Two Worlds. The Rangers return to the power chamber to discover Billy, heavily aged and played by an entirely different actor. Sadly, David Yost had left the series, reportedly due to reduced pay because of his changed role. However, they did need to give the character a proper send-off, even if the actor playing old Billy really didn't get any of his mannerisms down. In story, however, the explanation is that the device he used to restore him to his proper age during the Alien Ranger saga had a delayed side effect, causing his rapid aging. Meanwhile, with Mondo back, Gasket and Archerina retreat to their own planet for the time being. Over with the Camper of Evil, Finster has created a new magic staff for Rita to make monsters. They decide to test it out on Catherine. A pretty damn good plan, all things considered. However, due to a minor targeting error, they hit Catherine's ugly purse instead, transforming that into a monster. Of course, they never bother to just shoot at Catherine again because, you know, that would make sense. The Rangers call on the Equations for help, reconstructing the regenerator in the hopes that it can restore Billy to his proper age. However, it backfires and damages the teleportation system. Mondo, not wanting to be outdone by Rita and Zed, sends his own monster to destroy Angel Grove. Equally, not wanting to be outdone by Mondo's monster, Rita and Zed make their Purse Monster grow. The Purse Monster, shockingly, is possibly Rita and Zed's most powerful monster. Physical attacks are useless, and it simply reflects energy attacks back at the Rangers. Damn, Rita's new staff is friggin' awesome! Mondo's monster, in turn, has the ability to take over other mechanical objects, and takes over the Zeo Megazord. The Rangers are forced to retreat when the Zeo Ultrazord is useless, and they try the regenerator again. It helps a little, but ultimately isn't enough. Mondo, pissed off about the Purse Monster, sends it to another planet. Billy detects the sabotage in the Zeo Megazord and goes in to try to repair it, but the Megazord lifts off with him inside of it. With the teleporter down, they can't get him out, and they send out the Super Zeo Megazord to try to get its compatriot under control. While they can't stabilize the Megazord, they do manage to fix the teleporter and get Billy out. Mondo's monster assumes control of the Zeo Megazord and fights the Rangers. Finster manages to locate the Purse Monster and sends it back to the Rangers, putting it right into the Super Zeo Megazord and commandeering it. This isn't quite as surreal as Master Vile's little party, but it's up there. Two monsters from opposing evil factions are fighting each other using the Rangers' Zords. Wow. Meanwhile, the Equations bring water from their version of the Fountain of Youth to try to restore Billy. The Rangers, in the meantime, trick the Purse Monster out of the Super Zeo Megazord. Kat and Tanya enter the Zeo Megazord and destroy the cog that was controlling it. The water helps Billy a little, but it's not enough. They decide to send him to Aquitar for stronger doses of the water. Mondo deploys a large battalion of cogs to Angel Grove, and we finally get the reason for our title. The Zeo Rangers combine forces with the Equation Rangers, and it is awesome. What's really great about this is that there's an actual Sentai team-up between the two series. The only disappointing thing about this is that their combined footage is far too short. While we don't get to see the Battleborgs joining with the others, we do get to see all four Zords that the Rangers have fighting the monsters. The Rangers receive a transmission from Aquitar to let them know that Billy is back to his regular age. They use stock footage of him visually, but of course hire someone who sounds absolutely nothing like him as per tradition. He says he's going to stay behind because he's fallen for one of the Equations, meaning that he's finally found a love interest after the 500 previous ones. The episode ends with the montage of Billy's moments from the series. Admittedly, it's a better send-off than Aisha got, but not up to par with Kimberly. And with Billy leaving, the last of the original 5 is gone. Yeah, I suppose having Jason around might count, but he was gone for so long, and when this season concludes, we'll be saying farewell to him too. Hawaii Zeo opens with Gaskin and Archerina returning and attacking the Rangers, attempting to take the Gold Ranger powers from Jason. Jason's having a hard time too, getting severely weakened. While the Rangers retreat, Sprocket tells Gasket that instead of trying to send a monster, that he should just make himself grow and fight the Rangers. It's apparently actually a clever ruse to get rid of Gasket. Alpha and Zordon examine Jason, but can't find anything wrong with his powers. The Rangers fight Gasket and Archerina and manage to defeat them. The two villains finally retreat for good when Mondo shows up. The season ends with good as gold. Jason's on the run from the Cogs and his powers are constantly in flux. However, he's also intercepted by Rita, Zed, and a squad of Tengas. Like the Machine Empire, they're after the Gold Ranger powers. Mondo and the rest of the royal family arrive, deciding to have an argument with Rita and Zed. Rita tells Mondo that they aren't frightened of the Machine Empire anymore, that they've become an intergalactic joke. And it's hard not to see why. Like Rita and Zed, they failed every attempt to destroy the Rangers. Hell, Rita and Zed actually did defeat the Rangers on several occasions, whereas the Zeo Rangers have just gotten more powerful. Jason manages to slip away while the Tengas and Cogs battle. It's actually a pretty damn brutal fight, much more so than usually shown on this show, with the Tengas getting wailed on and feathers pulled while some of the Cogs are disemboweled. He arrives at the juice bar exhausted, and the Rangers bring him to the power chamber to run tests. Their fears are confirmed. Jason's body is rejecting the Gold Ranger powers, and they need to be returned to Trey. However, Trey is still split into 3 forms, but travels to Earth anyway to try to help. Mondo demands that Rita and Zed leave, and Zed suddenly and surprisingly acquiesces to their demand.
All right, what have you done with the real Ed? And just who are you
Get your
anyway?
hands off of me! When have you ever known me to give up? I have a plan, you numbskull. Soon we will be rid of that self-impressed, metal-plated fool once and for all!
The Rangers work on a ceremony to restore Trey to normal and transfer the Gold Ranger powers back to him. While they're off doing that, Bulk and Skull lament how Detective Stone doesn't seem to want to give them a real case, but they are then contacted by a French Secret Service agent wanting to hire the two for undercover work in France. They quit their job with Detective Stone, who at first is angry with them, but privately looks sad that they're leaving. The ceremony, despite being interrupted by Mondo and the Cogs, goes off without a hitch and Trey is restored. Mondo and the Cogs grow, and the Rangers at first decide to call their Zords, but Trey says there isn't enough time, instead making the Rangers themselves grow. This is admittedly not the most impressive fight, but it's still pretty damn cool. The only time where the Rangers themselves grow and fight. What's especially important is that Tommy once again fights King Mondo. However, this time it goes differently. Recall that the last time they fought, Mondo wiped the floor with him. However, the Zeo Crystal is supposed to continually grow in power over time, meaning that the Rangers are always growing more powerful. Thus, with the great symbolism of Mondo's mechanical crown falling off, the Machine King and his empire are once again defeated. However, it isn't the Rangers who ultimately drive the Machine Empire off. Zed, in a peace offering, gives Sprocket a gift as the villains drive off in the Camper of Evil. When Sprocket opens the gift, a bomb goes off, blowing up the entire royal house of gadgetry. Zed proclaims happily,
We're back!
Admittedly, Mondo's head keeps on talking after they've blown up, saying that they haven't seen the last of the Machine Empire, but frankly, with no one in charge of the Empire to rebuild them, it's obvious that it'll take them quite a while to reassemble and be a threat again. They might even need the resources of the United Alliance of Evil. And so the season comes to its conclusion with a proper bookending of Tommy giving a pep talk to Jason because of the loss of his powers, much like what had happened to Tommy beforehand. And besides, Jason's still got a girlfriend, whereas Tommy has his moronic Dear John letter and the forced romance with Kat. Assisting the transition from Mighty Morphin to Zeo was the music. As I said before, the addition of the chorus gave a larger sense of majesty to the team, while at the same time evoking the mysticism that comes with the Zeo Crystal. Speaking of which, I love the Zeo theme song. Here, have a listen. It's basically a sequel song to Go Go Power Rangers, even containing a minor key version of the original theme within it. While the fight music wasn't quite as good as the previous seasons, it's still pretty enjoyable and continues the rock music that was such a strength in Mighty Morphin. I like to think that the switch to Zeo was a cost-cutting measure. While the Zords were being replaced every season, as long as they were using the Season 1 costumes, they had to shoot new footage every time we saw them. Over the course of the previous 3 seasons, the stories began to rely increasingly less on Sentai footage, and it probably was a pain in the neck for the accountants of the show. Once Zeo came in, the fights, both in Ranger form and the Zords, could once again be Sentai footage. The Machine Empire as villains never quite did it for me. While they had a strong start with their introduction, they never quite captured the idea of being a huge invading force from beyond the stars that could be a legitimate threat to the Rangers and the Earth. It might have helped if we saw them launch more large-scale attacks instead of just the occasional monsters and cogs. They never had quite the charm of Rita and Zed either, though that might have just been growing pains since we had just lost the two. Bulk and Skull's development this season is both good and bad. The bad parts of it are them taking in Goldar and Rito as servants. Now don't get me wrong, it's funny as hell, especially seeing them in a position where they have power over the monsters they've always been afraid of, but the fact that they're acting like assholes to two beings that are in a spot just makes them come off like dicks. Of course, Goldar and Rito do get their revenge every once in a while, and it's nice to see the consequences of their behavior. However, the brighter sides of their nature do get to shine through quite a bit. For example, we learn in one episode that Skull is actually a classically trained piano player, and a damn good one. And while Bulk initially mocked classical music as being for dweebs, when he discovers Skull plays it, he suddenly finds it awesome, showing that even though at times Skull can be an idiot and Bulk an overloading jackass, they're still friends and not quite as one-dimensional as one might think. The better parts of their nature also shine through when they quit the junior police to support Lieutenant Stone. Sure, they're afraid of the guy and probably would prefer to be left to their own devices, but you also get the impression that they have tremendous respect for the man. Even while being held in the other dimension, we do actually get to see that their bumbling nature still helps them out. They're still fast enough to dodge cog attacks and fight back, and in fact, their Three Stooges-esque battle tactics seem a lot more effective at times than the Power Rangers using karate. I'd imagine it's because the cogs, as machines, are designed to fight against certain karate fighting techniques, but not quite as well programmed against comic relief fighting. So yeah, Zeo didn't take the two much further, but there was plenty of humor to be found, and they continued to be friendlier towards the teens instead of bullies. What's interesting about this season is that we've had a complete reversal of magic versus technology. The Zeo Crystal, a mystical object, is now the power source for the Rangers, while the forces of technology and machines are now coming to fight the Rangers. Admittedly, it's downplayed due to the fact that with Billy around, they were still creating technological wonders to fight the Machine Empire. Instead, one could say that the Rangers represented a mix of technology and magic. The mystical powers of the crystal were complemented by technology, and, as I said before, the circuitry look of the details in the Zeo suit allude to that. Instead, the magic side of things was represented by Rita and Zed. They were the old guard, the past villains who represented older ways and superstitions who had lost their power as time moved on and progress advanced. Anytime the two tried to use technology to fight the Empire, it backfired on them. However, when Rita got her new magic staff, she created a monster far more effective than most of Mondo's machines. The Rangers, however, were the compromise between the technology and magic, and they were able to fight off both forces. If Zeo's overall theme had to be summed up in a single word, it would be triumph. Back when the Zeo Crystal was first introduced, it was suggested that over time its power continually increased, and I'd say that's pretty evident by the end of the series. The Rangers could hold their own against the Machine Empire even without the use of a Zord, and their arsenal would just continue to grow larger. If the Machine Empire had stuck around, the Rangers would have probably eventually just have forced them into retreat anyway. Power Rangers Zeo showed the team at their strongest, a wide array of weapons, power levels ever increasing, and their enemies were getting easier to defeat. Writing-wise, it honored the history of the team while also building on their new premise to advance further. However, after 4 years, it was time for the team to graduate from the 5 teenagers with attitude premise and take the next step into greatness. A pity, though, that the next season meandered through that concept when they shifted into Turbo.
Your presence here must mean you are the fiercest warriors on Earth.
Actually, we're just sort of...
Actually, yes. We are the bravest and most powerful warriors on our planet.
Excellent. Then you can help me in my plans to escape from here and foil Clint's casket.
Us? Us?
And with the help of Triter the alien, we saved the Power Rangers.
Yeah, and now we're legends on the planet of Horath.